Man, I could just listen to this music. I love music. So welcome, friends. It's your favorite dork here, Adorkable Blonde. Just chilling. It's snowing. I actually got sent home from work an hour early today because the roads were supposed to be bad. But it's so pretty out. I posted a pic of it on my Twitter, so you should go check it out. It's so pretty. I love the snow. I'm not a big fan of the cold, but I do love the snow. So I hope you're warm and cozy, though, wherever you are. Not too hot, not too cold. Hope you're having a good day today. Or a good evening, if it's evening where you are. Oh my gosh, this song is called The Pizza Song. Now I'm hungry. Oops, I guess now they decided to end it because I made a comment about the pizza song. So again, welcome. I'm so excited. I know it's been a while. I kind of took a week off. Didn't mean to, but things happen sometimes. But I'm back. Yay! And we still... Oh, this is a hoppin' song. Ooh, this song. I like this song. This is awesome. Summer Breeze. Ooh, what a cool... Well, we just went straight from pizza to summer, and it's pretty much a solid winter out there today. 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which is freezing, and lots of snow. It's been raining most of the morning for about 6 hours, and then about noon it switched to snow, and it's been snowing ever since. And it's just about 5:30 p.m. where I'm at now. Man, this song is jamming. So thank you for spending your evening with me, or your morning, or whatever it may be. If you're new to my channel, welcome. So what I do here is a little bit more low-key than what I do on, like, say, my gaming streams, or a lot of other streams maybe you see. I just like to read. So I decided if I stay committed to my gaming streams, maybe if I do a reading stream, I'll stay committed to it too and read a little bit more, because I want to spend more time reading. Now, because I am in the US, I do have some issues with copyright laws. So everything I read has to be like more than 100 years old. It has to be in the public domain. So right now we are reading Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And I picked that book because I thought I've always wanted to read it. I always hear cool things about it. I thought, hey, I'll read that book. I feel like I am taking a college course on the Art of War, because the version I had to pick because of copyright laws is like a 1910 version, and it's just full of this author's commentary. And I don't even remember not the author, the interpreter's commentary. The author, of course, is Sun Tzu. So anyway, so the interpreter has his commentary, and he has a lot of Chinese words that I don't understand. He uses a lot of French that I can kind of fumble through. But he also uses like some very old English, like words that we really don't use anymore. And so I'm kind of stumbling on that too. And all the comments are kind of hilarious. Well, some of them are just normal comments, and they're interesting and very intellectual. But some of the comments are hilarious because he really, 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 really does not like another guy that interpreted the book before him. And that dude's name is Captain Calthorpe or something like that. Calthrop. And boy, he just gets all kinds of creative with his hoity-toity insults to Captain Calthrop. But we are on chapter 7 tonight. All of the other chapters are on my YouTube channel. It's, of course, YouTube it's at The Adorkable Blonde. Somebody already stole Adorkable Blonde out from under me. Can't believe they would do that. So it has The Adorkable Blonde. So it's TheAdorkableBlonde. The Adorkable Blonde. So, and you can also find me on Twitter. I was not able to get my Adorkable Blonde handle there either, but it's Adorkable Blonde without the E at the end. So it's on Twitter, I'm Adorkable Blonde, BLOND, just like I'm Adorkable Blonde on here. So that works out pretty cool. And I think that's about it for the housekeeping. I guess let me go ahead and turn off the music. And then we can go ahead. Whoops. Then we will go ahead. Oh, this is a good song too. This one's summer. Boy, they're just all summery today, and it's snowing here. So there we go. And let's go ahead again. I haven't gotten my kids to do my transitions for me yet. So just everyone act like it's a really, really, really cool transition. Because boink, here we go. Yay! There we are. Hi. So here we are, chapter 7. I do go ahead and pull this up full screen. I show it so that you can see it. I think I have where you can see my mouse or my cursor, hopefully. But that way you can read along if you want to read along. If you see me totally flub some words, feel free to send me a message and tell me that I totally flubbed the words. I am working on setting up a Discord, so then maybe we can voice chat sometime and you can tell me how to pronounce some of these things that I'm totally flubbing if you know how to pronounce them. Especially a lot of these Chinese characters, I really have no idea. So, we will go ahead and get started. But anyway, so what I was saying, oh my gosh, such a crazy thought train today. So I will try and pop in to check the chat room. So be patient if you say something and I don't respond right away. I do not have my chat overlay on my OBS yet. I do have it to overlay on my gaming stream, but I use a different platform for that. So here we go. So chapter 7. Maneuvering. The commentators, as well as the subsequent text, make it clear that this is the real meaning of these symbols. Thus, Li Chuan says that this symbol means these symbols marching rapidly to seize an advantage. Wang Sai says striving means striving for an advantage. This being obtained, victory will follow. And Chang Yu, the two armies face to face and each striving to obtain a tactical advantage over the other. According to the latter commentator, then, the situation is analogous to that of two wrestlers maneuvering for a hold before coming to actual grips. In any case, we must beware of translating this by the word fighting or battle, as if it were equivalent to this symbol. Captain Calthrop falls into this mistake. See, boy, right off the bat. First paragraph, he's already slamming Captain Calthrop. 1. Sun Tzu said, in war, the general receives his commands from the sovereign. For this symbol, there's another reading which Li Chuan explains as being the reverent instrument of heaven's chastisement. 2. Having collected an army and concentrated his forces, he must blend and harmonize the different elements thereof before pitching his camp. Oh, by the way, if you're new, what I do is I go through and I read this with all the commentary, but at the very end, I'll go through and I'll just read the large printed parts that are just the parts that Sun Tzu said, supposedly, without all the commentary in it that makes it confusing sometimes. Cao Kung takes this as referring to this or main gate of the military camp. This, Tu Mu tells us, was formed with a couple of flags hung across. These symbols would then mean setting up his main gate opposite that of the enemy. But Chia Lin's explanation, which has been adopted above, is on the whole simpler and better. Chang Yu, while following Cao Kung, adds that the words may also be taken to mean the establishment of harmony and confidence between the higher and lower ranks before venturing into the field. And he quotes a saying of Wu Zu, "Without harmony in the state, no military expedition can be undertaken. Without harmony in the army, no battle array can be formed." In the historical romance, chapter 75, Sun Tzu himself is represented as saying to Wu Yuan, "As a general rule, those who are waging war should get rid of all domestic troubles before proceeding to attack the external foe." This symbol is defined as this symbol. It here conveys the notion of encamping after having taken the field. 3. After that comes tactical maneuvering, than which there is nothing more difficult. I have departed slightly from the traditional interpretation of Cao Kung, who says, "From the time of receiving the sovereign's instructions until our encampment over against the enemy, the tactics to be pursued are most difficult." It seems to me that the tactics or maneuvers can hardly be said to begin until the army has sallied forth and encamped, and Chan Hao's note gives color to this view. For levying, concentrating, harmonizing, and entrenching an army, there are plenty of old rules which will serve. The real difficulty comes when we engage in tactical operations. Tu Yu also observes that the great difficulty is to be beforehand with the enemy in seizing favorable positions. The difficulty of tactical maneuvering consists in turning the devious into the direct and misfortune into gain. These symbols is one of those highly condensed and somewhat enigmatical expressions of which Sun Tzu is so fond. This is how it is explained by Cao Kung. Make it appear that you are a long way off, then cover the distance rapidly and arrive on the scene before your opponent. Tu Mu says, hoodwink the enemy so that he may be remiss and leisurely while you are dashing along with the utmost speed. Ho Shi gives a slightly different turn to the sentence. Although you may have difficult ground to traverse and natural obstacles to encounter, this is a drawback which can be turned into actual advantage by celerity of movement. Signal examples of this saying are afforded by the two famous passages across the Alps, that of Hannibal, which laid Italy at his mercy, and that of Napoleon 2,000 years later, which resulted in the great victory of Marengo. 4. Thus, to take a long and circuitous route after enticing the enemy out of the way, and though starting after him, to contrive to reach the goal before him, shows knowledge of the artifice of deviation. Chia Lin understands this as the enemy's line of march. Thus, if our adversary's course is really a short one, and we can manage to divert him from it, either by simulating weakness or by holding out some small advantage, we shall be able to beat him in the race for good positions. This is quite a defensible view, though not adopted by any other commentator. Okay. This, of course, equals this other symbol, and this are to be taken as verbs. Tu Mu cites the famous march of Chao Shi in 270 BC to relieve the town of Oyu, which was closely invested by a Qian army. It should be noted that the above is the correct pronunciation of these symbols, as given in the commentary on the Qian Hanshu, chapter 34. Giles's dictionary gives Yu, and Shivana's, I know not on what authority, prefers to write Yenyu. The name is omitted altogether from Playfair's Cities and Towns. The king of Chao first consulted Lien Po on the advisability of attempting a relief, but the latter thought the distance too great and the intervening country too rugged and difficult. His Majesty then turned to Chao Shi, who fully admitted the hazardous nature of the march, but finally said, "We shall be like two rats fighting in a hole, and the pluckier one will win." So he left the capital with his army, but had only gone a distance of 30 li when he stopped and began throwing up entrenchments. For 28 days he continued strengthening his fortifications and took care that spies should carry the intelligence to the enemy. The Qian general was overjoyed and attributed his adversary's tardiness to the fact that the beleaguered city was in the Han state and thus not actually part of Chao territory. But the spies had no sooner departed than Chao Shi began a forced march lasting for 2 days and 1 night, and arrived on the scene of action with such astonishing rapidity that he was able to occupy a commanding position on the North Hill before the enemy had got wind of his movements. A crushing defeat followed for the Qian forces, who were obliged to raise a siege of Oyu in all haste and retreat across the border. 5. Maneuvering with an army is advantageous, with an undisciplined multitude most dangerous. I here adopt the reading of the Tung Tian, Chang Yu Xian, and the Tu Shu, where this appears to supply the exact nuance required in order to make sense. The standard text, on the other hand, in which this is repeated, seems somewhat pointless. The commentators take it to mean that maneuvers may be profitable, or they may be dangerous. It all depends on the ability of the general. Captain Calthrop translates the wrangles of a multitude. I was just looking around my room. I think I have my little book, but now I don't know where my little book is. I was going to compare because I can read little parts of my little book without getting into trouble with copyrights. But now I don't know where my little book is. Oh well, I'll have to make sure I have my book for next time. I can't read the whole book, but I can read parts of the book and be okay. All right, back to our reading. Excuse me. Number 6. If you set a fully equipped army in march in order to snatch an advantage, the chances are that you will be too late. The original text has this instead of this, but a verb is needed to balance the two sayings. Okay. On the other hand, to detach a flying column for the purpose involves the sacrifice of its baggage and stores. And that makes 0 sense to me. I am going to look in my room and see if I can find that book. My child brought it to me just the other day. sadly, my streaming office is my bedroom. So sometimes things get misplaced. I'm not exactly high tech here, in case you haven't figured that out. Today I'm actually using a little pillow to hold my phone. One time I've used Mechagodzilla, because you just gotta do what you gotta do sometimes when you don't have the high-tech setups of everything. Aw, man. I really thought my book might be there, and my book is not there. So sad. I thought I knew where it was. Whoops. Ah, I found it! Yay! Just had to move one more thing. Okay. Now let's get back to where we were. We're on chapter 7, number 6. 2, 3. I don't know why I'm yawning. 7. Okay, this one by Thomas Cleary names chapter 7 Armed Struggle. What's the copyright date on this one? $1988. Hey! That's the year I graduated from high school. So this is from 1988. Okay, so chapter 7, number 6. So this one says, to mobilize the whole army to struggle for advantage would take too long. Yet to struggle for advantage with a stripped-down army results in lack of equipment. So if you travel light, not stopping day or night, doubling your usual pace, struggling for an advantage 100 miles away, your military leaders will be captured. Strong soldiers will get there first, the weary later on. As a rule, 1 in 10 make it. Okay, that doesn't seem like anything that we just read, but we will accept it and move on. So, if you set a fully equipped army in march in order to snatch an advantage, the chances are that you will be too late. On the other hand, to detach a flying column for the purpose involves the sacrifice of its baggage and stores. It is evidently unintelligible to the Chinese commentators who paraphrase the sentence as though it began with, okay, really? So now he's trashing all the Chinese commentators too, like the people that speak the language he's interpreting. He's saying they don't know what they're saying. Man, this guy's a trip. Okay, this is evidently unintelligible to the Chinese commentators who paraphrase the sentence as though it began with these symbols. Absolute tautology in the apodosis can then only be avoided by drawing an impossibly fine distinction between this and this. I submit my own rendering without much enthusiasm, being convinced that there is some deep-seated corruption in the text. On the whole, it is clear that Sun Tzu does not approve of a lengthy march being undertaken without supplies. 7. Thus, if you order your men to roll up their buff coats, this does not mean to discard one's armor, as Captain Calthrop translates, but implies, on the contrary, that it is to be carried with you. Chang Yu says this means in full panoply. And I'm going to have to pause again for just a moment. I will be right back, but it's getting dark out and I have to take care of the animals. It'll be like 2 minutes because I'm actually not taking care of the animals. I'm telling my kids to take care of the animals. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So, see, I told you it'd only take a minute. My kids, I let everybody out and take care of them and feed them in the morning, and then my kids always do it in the evening. And they do pretty good about doing it without being told, but it's dark a little bit earlier since it's so cloudy and snowy, and I just wanted them to hurry up and get out there and take care of them before it got too late. Alrighty then, let's run back to where we were. Back to 7. Okay. Full panoply. And make forced marches without halting day or night, covering double the usual distance at a stretch. The ordinary day's march, according to Tu Mu, was 30 li, but on one occasion, when pursuing Lu Pei, Cao Cao is said to have covered the incredible distance of 300 li within 24 hours. Doing 100 li in order to wrest an advantage, the leaders of all your 3 divisions will fall into the hands of the enemy. 8. The stronger men will be in front, the jaded ones will fall behind, and on this plan only 1/10 of your army will reach its destination. The moral is, as Cao Kung and others point out, don't march 100 li to gain a tactical advantage, either with or without impedimenta. Maneuvers of this description should be confined to short distances. Stonewall Jackson said, the hardships of forced marches are often more painful than the dangers of battle. He did not often call upon his troops for extraordinary exertions. It was only when he intended a surprise or when a rapid retreat was imperative that he sacrificed everything to speed. 9. If you march 50 li in order to outmaneuver the enemy, you will lose the leader of your first division, and only half your force will reach the goal. It is explained as similar in meaning to the other one. Literally, the leader of the first division will be torn away. Cao Chuan, 19th year. This is a case of the falling tree tearing up its roots. 10. If you march 30 li with the same object, 2/3 of your army will arrive. And the Tiang Tian is added. From this we may know the difficulty of maneuvering. And there's the scribbles of whoever had this book before it got scanned in. 11. We may take it, then, that an army without its baggage train is lost. Without provisions, it is lost. Without basis of supply, it is lost. This is explained by Tu Yu as fodder and the like, by Tu Mu and Chang Yu as goods in general, and by Wang Sai as fuel, salt, foodstuffs, etc. But I think what Sun Tzu meant was stores accumulated in depots, as distinguished from this and this, the various impedimenta. I said it a minute ago. Impedimenta accompanying an army on its march. 12. We cannot enter into alliances until we are acquainted with the designs of our neighbors. Li Chuan understands it as guards against, which is hardly so good. An original interpretation of this is given by Tu Mu, who says it stands for join in battle. 13. We are not fit to lead an army on the march unless we are familiar with the face of the country, its mountains and forests, its pitfalls. Someone defined it also as and precipices, its marshes, and swamps. 14. We shall be unable to turn natural advantages to account unless we make use of local guides. 15. In war, practice dissimulation and you will succeed. According to Tu Mu, this stands for this. In the tactics of Turin, deception of the enemy, especially as to the numerical strength of his troops, took a very prominent position. Move only if there is a real advantage to be gained. This is the interpretation of all the commentators except Wang Sai, who has a brief note entice out the enemy by offering him some apparent advantage. 16. Whether to concentrate or to divide your troops must be decided by circumstances. 17. Let your rapidity be that of the wind. The simile is doubly appropriate because the wind is not only swift, but, as Mei Yao Qian points out, invisible and leaves no tracks. Your compactness that of the forest. It is hardly possible to take this here in its ordinary sense of sedate, as Tu Yu tries to do. Meng Shi comes nearer the mark in his note, when slowly marching, order and ranks must be preserved, so as to guard against surprise attacks. But natural forests do not grow in rows, whereas they do generally possess the quality or density of compactness. I think, then, that Mei Yao Qian uses the right adjective in saying what he said. In raiding and plundering be like fire, fierce as a blazing fire which no man can check. In immovability like a mountain. That is, when holding a position from which the enemy is trying to dislodge you, or perhaps, as Tu Yu says, when he is trying to entice you into a trap. 19. Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. The original text has this instead of this. Tu Yu quotes a saying of Tao Kung, which has passed into a proverb. You cannot shut your ears to the thunder or your eyes to the lightning, so rapid are they. Likewise, an attack should be made so quickly that it cannot be parried. 20. When you plunder a countryside, let the spoil be divided amongst your men. The reading of Tu Yu, Chia Lin, and apparently Xiao Kung is this, which is explained as referring to the subdivision of the army mentioned in Chapter 5, Sections 1 and 2, by means of banners and flags, serving to point out to each man the way he should go. But this is very forced, and the ellipsis is too great, even for Sun Tzu. Luckily, the Tung Tian and Yu Lan have the variant, which not only suggests the true reading, but affords some clue to the way in which the corruption arose. Some early commentator having inserted this as the sound of this, the two may afterwards have been read as one character, and this being interchangeable with this must have finally disappeared altogether. Meanwhile, this would have been altered to this other symbol in order to make sense. As regards these other symbols, I believe that Ho Shi alone has grasped the real meaning, to the other commentators understanding it as dividing the men into parties to search for plunder. Sun Tzu wishes to lessen the abuses of indiscriminate plundering by insisting that all booty shall be thrown into a common stock, which may afterwards be fairly divided amongst all. When you capture new territory, cut it up into allotments for the benefit of the soldiery. That this is the meaning may be gathered from Tu Mu's note. These symbols give the same advice. It means to enlarge or extend at the expense of the enemy. Understood. Hating all the great states, Qian Hao also says, quarter your soldiers on the land and let them sow and plant it. It is by acting on this principle and harvesting the lands they invaded that the Chinese have succeeded in carrying out some of their most memorable and triumphant expeditions, such as that of Pan Chao, who penetrated to the Caspian, and in more recent years, those of Fu Kengan and So Sung Tang. Sorry, I'm no good at that. See, I thought this was all going to be in English, so I thought it would be a lot easier for me to read. But I am trying. 21. Ponder and deliberate. Ponder and deliberate. Note that both these words, like the Chinese, are really metaphors derived from the use of scales. Before you make a move. Chang Yu quotes as saying that we must not break camp until we have gauged the resisting power of the enemy and the cleverness of the opposing general. The 7 comparisons in Chapter 1, Section 13, Captain Calthrop omits this sentence. He will conquer who has learnt the artifice of deviation. Such is the art of maneuvering. With these words, the chapter would naturally come to an end, but there now follows a long appendix in the shape of an extract from an earlier book on war, now lost, but apparently extant at the time when Sun Tzu wrote. The style of this fragment is not noticeably different from that of Sun Tzu himself, but no commentator raises a doubt as to its genuineness. 23. The Book of Army Management says, it is perhaps significant that none of the earlier commentators give us any information about this work. Mei Yaoqian calls it an ancient military classic, and Wang Sai an old book on war. Considering the enormous amount of fighting that had gone on for centuries before Sun Tzu's time between the various kingdoms and principalities of China, it is not in itself improbable that a collection of military maxims should have been made and written down at some earlier period. On the field of battle, implied though not actually in the Chinese, the spoken word does not carry far enough, hence the institution of gongs and drums. I have retained these words of the original text, which recur in the next paragraph, in preference to the other reading, drums and bells, which is found in the Tengtian, Pei Tang Shu Qiao, and Yu Lan. This is a bell with a clapper. Of course, it would include both gongs and bells of every kind. Nor can ordinary objects be seen clearly enough, hence the excuse me. Oh my goodness. I don't know what that was. Hence the institution of banners and flags. 24. Gongs and drums, banners and flags are means whereby the ears and eyes of the host. The original text followed by Tu Shu has this other symbol for this here and in the next 2 paragraphs, but as we have seen, this other one is usually used by Sun Tzu for the enemy. May be focused on one particular point. Note the use of that line as a verb. Chang Yu says, if sight and hearing converge simultaneously on the same object, the evolutions of as many as 1,000,000 soldiers will be like those of a single man. The host thus 25. The host thus forming a single united body, it is impossible either for the brave to advance alone or for the cowardly to retreat alone. Chang Yu quotes a saying, equally guilty are those who advance against orders and those who retreat against orders. Tu Mu tells a story in this connection of Wu Qi when he was fighting against the Qian state. Before the battle had begun, one of his soldiers, a man of matchless daring, sallied forth by himself, captured 2 heads from the enemy, and returned to camp. Wu Qi had the man instantly executed, whereupon an officer ventured to remonstrate, saying, this man was a good soldier and ought not to have been beheaded. Wu Qi replied, I fully believe he was a good soldier, but I had him beheaded because he acted without orders. This is the art of handling large masses of men. 26. In night fighting, then, make much use of signal fires and drums, and in fighting by day, of flags and banners, as a means of influencing the ears and eyes of your army. Oops, I just realized my phone fell from my fancy phone stand. I probably looked like I was sleeping the whole time I was reading that. Oops. The Tung Tien has the bad variant, the symbol for this symbol. With regard to the latter word, I believe I have hit off the right meaning, the whole phrase being slightly elliptical for influencing the movements of the army through their senses of sight and hearing. Li Chuan, Tu Mu, and Chia Lin certainly seem to understand it thus. The other commentators, however, take this symbol or this as the enemy, and this as the equivalent to these to perplex or confound. This does not agree so well with what has gone before, though, on the other hand, it renders the transition to section 27 less abrupt. The whole question, I think, hinges on the alternative readings of these symbols. The latter would almost certainly denote the enemy. Qian Hao alludes to Li Kongpai's night ride to Hoyang at the head of 500 mounted men. They made such an imposing display with torches that though the rebel leader, Shi Suming, had a large army, he did not dare to dispute their passage. Qian Hao gives the date as AD 756, but according to the New Tang history, it must have been later than this, probably 760. 27. A whole army may be robbed of its spirit. In war, says Cheng Yu, if a spirit of anger can be made to pervade all ranks of an army at one and the same time, its onset will be irresistible. Now the spirit of the enemy's soldiers will be keenest when they have newly arrived on the scene, and it is therefore our cue not to fight at once, but to wait until their ardor and enthusiasm have worn off, and then strike. It is in this way that they may be robbed of their keen spirit. Li Chuan and others tell an anecdote found in the So Chuan. Year 10, Section 1 of Cao Kai, a protege of Duke Chuang of Lu. The latter state was attacked by Qi, and the Duke... Sorry. Ooh, that came on quick. I tried to cover my thing so I didn't sneeze in y'all's ears. I apologize if I did. The latter state was attacked by Qi, and the Duke was about to join battle at Changzhou after the first roll of the enemy's drums, when Xiao said, "Not just yet." Only after their drums had beaten for the third time did he give the word for attack. Then they fought, and the men of Qi were utterly defeated. Questioned afterwards by the Duke as to the meaning of his delay, Cao Kai replied, "In battle, a courageous spirit is everything. Now the first roll of the drum tends to create the spirit. But with the second it is already on the wane, and after the third it is gone altogether. I attacked when their spirit was gone and ours was at its height. Hence our victory." Chapter 4 puts spirit first among the 4 important influences in war and continues, "The value of a whole army, a mighty host of 1,000,000 men, is dependent on one man alone. Such is the influence of spirit. A commander-in-chief may be robbed of his presence of mind." Captain Calthrop goes woefully astray with his defeat his general's ambition. Cheng Yu says, presence of mind is the general's most important asset. It is the quality which enables him to discipline disorder and to inspire courage into the panic-stricken. The great General Li Cheng has a saying, "Attacking does not merely consist in assaulting walled cities or striking at an army in battle array. It must include the art of assailing the enemy's mental equilibrium." 28. Now a soldier's spirit is keenest in the morning. Always I suppose that he has had breakfast. At the Battle of the Trebia, the Romans were foolishly allowed to fight, fasting, whereas Hannibal's men had breakfasted at their leisure. By noonday, it has begun to flag, and in the evening, his mind is bent only on returning to camp. "29. A clever general, therefore, avoids an army when its spirit is keen, but attacks it when it is sluggish and inclined to return. This is the art of studying moods." The Tung Tien, for reasons of avoidance of personal names of the reigning dynasty, reads this for this in this and the next two paragraphs. 30. Disciplined and calm, to await the appearance of disorder and hubbub amongst the enemy, this is the art of retaining self-possession. 31. To be near the goal while the enemy is still far from it, to wait at ease. The Tung Tien has the symbol for this one. The two characters are practically synonymous, but according to the commentary, the latter is the form always used in Sun Tzu. While the enemy is toiling and struggling, to be well fed while the enemy is famished. This is the art of husbanding one's strength. 32. To refrain from intercepting. This symbol is the reading of the original text, but these symbols quotes the passage with Yao also meaning to intercept, and this is supported by the Pei Tang Shu Chao and Yulan and Wang Sai's text. An enemy whose banners are in perfect order, to refrain from attacking an army drawn up in calm and confident array. For this translation of these, I can appeal to the authority of Tu Mu, who defines the phrase as this. The other commentators mostly follow Cao Kung, who says this symbol probably meaning grand and imposing. Li Chuan, however, has in subdivisions, which is somewhat strange. This is the art of studying circumstances. I really don't like how they break up the thoughts with the commentary. I think they should really put the commentary at the end of each one. I think it would make a whole lot more sense. And that's why I go back at the end and read just the Sun Tzu parts, because it's a little bit of chaos here. I have not attempted a uniform rendering of the four phrases, though this last symbol really bears the same meaning in each case. It is to be taken, I think, not in the sense of to govern or control, but rather, as Kang Sai defines it, to examine and practice. Hence, look after, keep a watchful eye upon. We may find an example of this use in the Chao Li, Chapter 18, Section 46. Sun Tzu has not told us to control or restrain the quality which he calls the symbol, but only to observe the time at which it is strongest. As for this other symbol, it is important to remember that in the present context, it can only mean presence of mind. To speak of controlling presence of mind is absurd, and Captain Calthrop's to have the heart under control is hardly less so. The whole process recommended here is that of Chapter 6, Section 2. 33. It is a military axiom not to advance uphill against the enemy, nor to oppose him when he comes downhill. 34. Do not pursue an enemy who simulates flight. Do not attack soldiers whose temper is keen. 35. Do not swallow a bait offered by the enemy. Li Chuan and Tu Mu, with extraordinary inability to see a metaphor, take these words quite literally of food and drink that have been poisoned by the enemy. Qian Hao and Chang Yu carefully point out that the saying has a wider application. The Tung Tien reads to covet instead of this. The similarity of the two characters sufficiently accounts for the mistake. Do not interfere with an army that is returning home. The commentators explain this rather singular piece of advice by saying that a man whose heart is set on returning home will fight to the death against any attempt to bar his way, and is therefore too dangerous an opponent to be tackled. Chang Yu quotes the words of Han Sen, "Invincible is the soldier who hath his desire and returneth homewards." A marvelous tale is told of Cao Cao's courage and resource in Chapter 1 of the San Kuo Chi. In 198 AD, he was besieging Changsu in Jiang when Liu Piao sent reinforcements with a view of cutting off Cao's retreat. The latter was obliged to draw off his troops only to find himself hemmed in between two enemies who were guarding each outlet of a narrow pass in which he had engaged himself. In this desperate plight, Cao waited until nightfall, when he bored a tunnel into the mountain side and laid an ambush in it. Then he marched on with his baggage train, and when it grew light, Chang Su, finding that the bird had flown, pressed after him in hot pursuit. As soon as the whole army had passed by, the hidden troops fell on its rear, while Cao himself turned and met his pursuers in front, so that they were thrown into confusion and annihilated. Cao Cao said afterwards, "The brigands tried to check my army in its retreat and brought me to battle in a desperate position. Hence, I knew how to overcome them." 36. When you surround an army, leave an outlet free. This does not mean that the enemy is to be allowed to escape. The object, as Tu Mu puts it, is to make him believe that there is a road to safety and thus prevent his fighting with the courage of despair. Tu Mu adds pleasantly, "After that, you may crush him." Oh, that was so nice of him. Do not press a desperate foe too hard. For this symbol, the Tu Shu reads pursue. Qian Hao quotes the saying, "Birds and beasts, when brought to bay, will use their claws and teeth." Chang Yu says, "If your adversary has burned his boats and destroyed his cooking pots and is ready to stake all on the issue of a battle, he must not be pushed to extremities." The phrase doubtless originated with Sun Tzu. The Pei Wen Yun Fu gives 4 examples of its use, the earliest being from the Qian Han Shu, and I have found another in chapter 34 of the same work. Ho Shi illustrates the meaning by a story taken from the life of Fu Yang Qiang in chapter 251 of this book. That general, together with his colleague Tu Chengwei, was surrounded by a vastly superior army of kittens in the year of 945 AD. That sounds like kittens. It's not kittens. Kittans? Let's say kittans. I'm sure they weren't kittens. The country was bare and desert-like, and the little Chinese force were soon in dire straits for want of water. The wells they bored ran dry, and the men were reduced to squeezing lumps of mud and sucking out the moisture. Their ranks thinned rapidly until at last Fu Yanqiang exclaimed, "We are desperate men. Far better to die for our country than to go with fettered hands into captivity." A strong gale happened to be blowing from the northeast and darkening the air with dense clouds of sandy dust. Tu Chengwei was for waiting until this had abated before deciding on a final attack. But luckily, another officer, Li Shaocheng by name, was quicker to see an opportunity and said, "They are many and we are few, but in the midst of the sandstorm our numbers will not be discernible. Victory will go to the strenuous fighter, and the wind will be our best ally." Accordingly, Fu Yanqiang made a sudden and wholly unexpected onslaught with his cavalry, routed the barbarians, and succeeded in breaking through to safety. Certain details in the above account have been added from this other book, chapter 78. Such is the art of warfare. Zhang Yuxin inserts this after this. I take it that these words conclude the extract, which began at number 23. So, that's the end of 7. Let's get back to This is a lot. This isn't like the relaxing reading I had hoped it would be, but it's really super interesting to me. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. And this is why sometimes I take a break and read Winnie the Pooh, because this is a lot. This is extremely academic, maybe? I don't know. It's good though. It's interesting. I do like it. I think I would have rather read the book without it. Oops, I went too far. Ah. But this is the one that I found that was one that I could use without getting into trouble. How did I go back that far? I must have really skipped over it. Okay, here we are. So now I'm going to go through. See, anybody have any comments or want me to read something over? Probably not, because you'll be like, I don't even know what to ask you to read over, because it's kind of all crazy. But that's okay. So I will go back through and I will read just the parts that Sun Tzu said, which is the big caps. So, Chapter 7, Maneuvering. 1. Sun Tzu said, in war, the general receives his commands from the sovereign. 2. Having collected an army and concentrated his forces, he must blend and harmonize the different elements thereof before pitching his camp. 3. After that comes tactical maneuvering, than which there is nothing more difficult. The difficulty of tactical maneuvering consists in turning the devious into the direct and misfortune into gain. 4. Thus, to take a long and circuitous route after enticing the enemy out of the way, and though starting after him, to contrive to reach the goal before him, shows knowledge of the artifice of deviation. 5. Maneuvering with an army is advantageous, with an undisciplined multitude most dangerous. 6. If you set a fully equipped army in march in order to snatch an advantage, the chances are that you will be too late. On the other hand, to detach a flying column for the purpose involves the sacrifice of its baggage and stores. 7. Thus, if you order your men to roll up their buff coats and make forced marches without halting day or night, covering double the usual distance at a stretch, doing 100 li in order to wrest an advantage, the leaders of all your 3 divisions will fall into the hands of the enemy. 8. The stronger men will be in front, the jaded ones will fall behind, and on this plan only 1/10 of your army will reach its destination. 9. If you march 50 li in order to outmaneuver the enemy, you will lose the leader of your first division and only half your force will reach the goal. 10. If you march 30 li with the same object, 2/3 of your army will arrive. 12. Missed 11. 11. We may take it then that an army without its baggage train is lost. Without provisions, it is lost. Without bases of supply, it is lost. 12. We cannot enter into alliances until we are acquainted with the designs of our neighbors. 13. We are not fit to lead an army on the march unless we are familiar with the face of the country, its mountains and forests, its pitfalls and precipices, its marshes and swamps. 14. We shall be unable to turn natural advantages to account unless we make use of local guides. 15. In war, practice dissimulation and you will succeed. Move only if there is a real advantage to be gained. 16. Whether to concentrate or to divide your troops must be decided by circumstances. 17. Let your rapidity be that of the wind, your compactness that of the forest. 18. In raiding and plundering be like fire, in immovability like a mountain. 19. Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. 20. When you plunder a countryside, let the spoil be divided amongst your men. When you capture new territory, cut it up into allotments for the benefit of the soldiery. 21. Ponder and deliberate before you make a move. 22. He will conquer who has learnt the artifice of deviation. Such is the art of maneuvering. 23. The Book of Army Management says, on the field of battle, the spoken word does not carry far enough, hence the institution of gongs and drums. Nor can ordinary objects be seen clearly enough, hence the institution of banners and flags. 24. Gongs and drums, banners and flags are means whereby the ears and eyes of the host may be focused on one particular point. 25. The host thus forming a single united body, it is impossible either for the brave to advance alone or for the cowardly to retreat alone. This is the art of handling large masses of men. 26. In night fighting, then, make much use of signal fires and drums, and in fighting by day, of flags and banners, as a means of influencing the ears and eyes of your army. 27. A whole army may be robbed of its spirit. A commander-in-chief may be robbed of his presence of mind. 28. Now a soldier's spirit is keenest in the morning. By noonday it has begun to flag, and in the evening his mind is bent only on returning to camp. 29. A clever general, therefore, avoids an army when its spirit is keen, but attacks it when it is sluggish and inclined to return. This is the art of studying moods. 30. Disciplined and calm, to await the appearance of disorder and hubbub amongst the enemy. This is the art of retaining self-possession. 31. To be near the goal while the enemy is still far from it, to wait at ease while the enemy is toiling and struggling, to be well fed while the enemy is famished. This is the art of husbanding one's strength. 32. To refrain from intercepting an enemy whose banners are in perfect order, to refrain from attacking an army drawn up in calm and confident array. This is the art of studying circumstances. 33. It is a military axiom not to advance uphill against the enemy, nor to oppose him when he comes downhill. 34. Do not pursue an enemy who simulates flight. Do not attack soldiers whose temper is keen. 35. Do not swallow a bait offered by the enemy. Do not interfere with an army that is returning home. 36. When you surround an army, leave an outlet free. Do not press a desperate foe too hard. 37. Such is the art of warfare. Whew. So there we have it. That is the end of that chapter. And guess what? We are now halfway done with this book. There's 13 chapters, and we just finished up chapter 7. So actually, we are a little bit more than halfway done. And I think that's a good thing because it is really a difficult book to read when you read all the commentary. The one that I have without a lot of commentary is a lot shorter, but even then, it's still like 169 pages. 170 pages. But that's okay. I think it's a good book. I mean, obviously, it's been around for 2,500 years. It's a really good book. So I'm glad I'm reading it. I'm glad you guys are joining me when I read it because I think I might have given up if I was reading this by myself. Or at least I would keep putting it off. But I feel like since I'm doing this with you guys that I just need to keep pushing through until we finish it. So we will finish it, and we will finish it. And then we can work on Winnie the Pooh, and we'll pick some other books to read. We'll do some chatting here. I was trying to think of something fun for us to do together. I can play some games on here. This is mostly my reading stream, but I might find a game. So if anybody has any games that they want to see me play or help me learn how to play, I have Steam and I have a laptop, and that's what I do my streaming on. I also have my cell phone though, and I think I can stream directly from my cell phone. So if there's some kind of a mobile game that you guys like to play or think would be cool or whatever, let me know, and I'd be happy to go ahead and join up, and we can go ahead and see how it goes. I don't have a game right now that I'm playing super actively on my phone. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I've got a lot of the good ones. I've got all kinds of different things that we could play. But I kind of like starting new things, so I might try and find something new to find. If anyone has anything that they can think of that, like I said, you can send me a message on here. You can also send me a message on Twitter or on YouTube. Feel free to message me at either one of those places. And there's my music, Coffin music, woohoo! So thanks for joining me tonight again on this cold, snowy night here and where I am, and hope you guys had a great evening or a great morning or whatever time of the day it is for you. And I hope to see you next time. We are halfway done. Don't give up on me. We can do this, guys. We can do this. Yay! So hope you have a super freaking awesome evening. Bye, y'all.